This is my favorite by far.
Ooh,
Baby pants
that's
with metal ducting
amazing.
for legs, especially the middle one, is fantastic.
Wow.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You okay?
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Plenty of cough syrup, I guess. Still, mostly after the fever broke, I've been much better, more morale wise, I guess. So like 16 hours of it was low grade, but just fever is never fun. Sweating and cold and sweating and cold and
Yeah, no fun. How long have you
yeah.
been down? A couple of days.
Well, a sore throat on Sunday. Monday, I woke up and felt not great. Tested positive, and then fever. Yeah, my wife got it at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been fun. The
Yeah,
weird
cool.
things of like just trying to get medicine, normal cold medicine when you have a virus. We have all these delivery services, but like all of it's out of stock, and you
Yeah,
can't
right.
get people to just deliver you cough syrup, but you can't go get it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, take it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I decided we needed symmetry in everything we do, so figured I would also get COVID so that we could have this fairness in everything we do on this podcast.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Pretty good.
Too much to do. Not getting through enough. But other than that, pretty good. Had a series of like child wake ups and then a faulty smoke alarm going off at 4 a.m. So I was just like, I rolled out of bed at 4:30. I was like, all right, let's go to work.
Ugh, burn day. I've both been exhausted and like fallen asleep at like 7 p.m. one night, which is strange for me. And then last night I couldn't fall asleep till like midnight. It was like, okay, I guess I've had enough sleep now.
Caught up. Yeah, I was thinking last week I should time code when I drink coffee and then it'll just make it easier for me to go through and cut it out.
That sounds neurotic though.
Maybe I'm enjoying your audio edits. I like the clips. They're very good.
I'm glad that the last
Don's-
episode makes sense because I was a little bit in a COVID fever as I was finishing it. I was like, I'm glad Jem listened to this because that whole like mental confusion thing is very true, especially when you're in the heat of the fever part.
I'm looking forward to this week's. See how weird it can get.
It's just like only Don talking.
Let me loose.
Yeah. I like that Don made an appearance as a. So have you been in work headspace at all? Or you've just been in recovery mode.
A little bit. I've been trying. I had a bit of a tussle with trying to get the Prusa to work remotely. Lucky Rookie got in and reset it, but I've been sending some of the baby pants, which just continues to have issues with weird things. Like, it's amazing the minor changes that you can do to all of a sudden then have what's called like overhang, right? So it's like printing and you try to rely on the space below being something to rely on, and kind of like the slicer software doesn't really show you what's going to happen. So it's why it's so relevant to call it baby pants. But on the butt side, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're getting weird overhang mess basically. And it just looks like squiggly lines that don't fall into a good situation. The alternative is support or change your design. And it was printing fine until all my tests were printing fine until I was like, let's do the final one. And then it's
of course.
Yeah.
You're printing in a controlled box, aren't you? Like you're temperature controlled. Yeah.
I mean, it's controlled by only what the Prusa creates. It's not any additional features, but it should be actually pretty dang good. There's also this whole thing I didn't understand prior to getting the Prusa really was you can get moisture in your filament. And then that causes basically mini explosions as it's coming out. You know, like your toothpaste situation where you squeeze it, it goes, it's that basically.
There was talk of this at the trade show last week because a lot of what we saw was printing. And I remember we ran into a bunch of technicians. We went for beers afterwards and one of them was talking about building drying environment for their filament. I think they were running a Markforged X7, so super fancy printer.
Yeah.
But moisture was a big deal. I think they were critical of how the filament was shipped and that they'd made an even more sort of moisture-proof container for it to be stored in. But I didn't know that previously that was an issue.
definitely adds some complication. It'd be like if we had to do like moisture tests on our plywood before we cut it, right? Like I don't do that anyway. You can bake it in your oven. There's all these different factors that I haven't gotten to yet, but I have to deal with it. It just trying to do anything in a production environment with it seems like we're going to have to control it more. And
totally. Well, yeah, production printing's a different game, right? To just prototyping bits and bobs on it.
Apparently, yeah. I'm very curious to hear about this tool show. How was this?
It was good. I got more out of it than I expected, to be honest. I was going partly for fun, a bit of a work trip with my friend Will, who I've probably mentioned. He's getting into printing in a big way. And so he was going. So we went together. It was a good thing. But yeah, I wasn't expecting to come back with a machine tool, or I didn't even have any really specific areas that I was looking to research other than getting some new tooling supplies for like the thread mill that we use on the pencil sharpener, which got confiscated off me in security, anecdotally. That was fun.
Saw that post. I didn't know if you made it through.
No, they took it off me. Thankfully, it was a chipped tool and not a fresh. But no, I got more out of it. So had some conversations with like the Autodesk resellers who were there and chatted to some tooling reps and just, checked out a bunch. Yeah, nothing groundbreaking, but it was really good to see what's happening. There was no sort of woodwork or timber work related stuff there. So it's all like more engineering, lathing.
Jim, it's called turning.
Well,
a little disappointing, but it's also, I don't know. I like seeing the difference too, but it's like you're going to try to make your current business better. That I haven't been in this space since those kind of places since I bought the router in 2017, and I went to basically a woodworking show, and CNC routers were there, and it was like the best place to see a bunch of different of those makers that I could find. And ever since then, I've basically found that that's pretty uncommon, except for that one show. It's mostly metal, and now I'm kind of like, I'd like to see both.
Yeah, that's cool. It's just nice to be exposed to different things. But yeah, it was interesting kind of walking around the show with the lens of which of these technologies is still going to be around in 5 years, because like 3D printing additive stuff is moving so fast, it seems, in terms of where the quality is going. Interesting to think down the road and be like, cool, if I invested in X today, like a valuable technology in 5 to 10 years time. But that was cool. I was going to ask you about production of 3D printing.
I'm fairly new to 3D printing, definitely no expert at it. I've kind of been stumbling my way through. I basically ignored it all through school because it was like, in my opinion, a crapshoot. It was like fused acrylic powder, and it basically, if you picked it up, it would fall apart again, and it was super expensive. It was like the type we had, and so it just didn't seem feasible for so long. And then, lately, last year or so, I've gotten into the FDM, FFF style, where it's basically a little Play-Doh extruder. And after watching that for so long, it's both impressive, but also seems really archaic in a certain way. It's like,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
If we had that idea in laser printing, for example, we would be waiting all day for one piece of paper to come out. Like if it only came out of one little thing, like, can we do the laser printer version of this where it comes out just like, real quick?
Totally.
It's got like a bajillion little ink heads to a plotter. I'm hoping that's the kind of advancement, because I feel even kind of weird trying to go about making production parts for like the dust boot on this one. Like, I keep thinking, do I need to invest in a better printer? Is this the thing to be doing it with?
Yeah, sure. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. So how do you, because I think you said it's an 11-hour print or something in that realm. How do you go about pricing something like that? Because obviously you can't put a normal CNC hourly rate.
Yeah, to be honest, I've never considered selling it as a service because of this. It doesn't seem like a professional service to me, because it's so easy to take off the shelf and print. And I don't see us making any ROI on printing other people's things. Like, it's just so cost effective for other people to buy a machine and do it. There's a lot of prototyping in houses. Our intention of buying the printers in the first place was kind of like Saunders always talks about, making things for your business to improve it.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we could potentially make these couple parts for products we're thinking about, and those seem pretty durable, like basically weird funnels and things like that for dust collection is kind of where we've ended up with it. And I'm not sure yet. That's my plan as of right now. And if it proves to be either not high enough quality or durable or something, but I mean, we've been using it and it seems incredibly durable at this point. I'm expecting it to last for quite a while, like those little dust boot ports.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure there'll be another step. A big consideration for me is if we're selling 10 of these a week for some reason, thankfully, we'll be buying more printers, is my only thought to it at this point.
Sure. But how do you, say you're making printing parts for your own product line, a product line that you're selling, that 11 hours of machine time.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a relatively cheap machine compared to a router. That, I'm just thinking through it now.
Yeah.
Do you assume that one day you'll have to pay for an injection molded parts and then you price it now as if it is an injection molded part, or do you put an hourly rate on the printer or some value? Yeah, I've always been interested in this because of just the time involved in printing. It's almost free time, and then you just charge for a bit of resin or plastic or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And a margin on that. It's weird.
It's really, my answer is I don't really consider it, especially in some of these products where what I think we're selling it's a collection of things. So if we had to charge by the hour, there's no way it would be beneficial, but the price of the machine becomes pretty affordable considering what you could sell the parts for, hopefully.
Yep.
In contrast to it as a service, I just don't, it would have to be way more volume based, and I just don't usually have a lot of interest in that kind of pumping of parts out. But I thought that the electricity cost would be a lot more of a consideration, but I think it uses 180 watts an hour, at full printing. Yeah. So it's pretty minimal, and really you're just considering the filament.
I suppose this has sort of come to my mind because in the last year we've gone from a single CNC machine to 3.
Yes.
And then I've also given up my role as lead machinist. So Johnny's lead machinist. We have an employee who runs up to 3 machines simultaneously. And I've always been a bit confused about how to price that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's yes, everything's quoted independently as if it's running its own machine. But then in reality, John, in a dream state, 3 jobs at the same time. And then, John's reporting his time. So he's reporting his time as an operator, but he's also reporting Cameron's time and Trinity's time and the pencil sharpener's time as 3 independent machine tools that are doing work. And it gets really messy in terms of, the simplest way to think about it is just it's 3 machines and an operator. That's kind of 4 clocks running at the same time. But yeah, it's something that perplexes me a little bit, and I haven't quite worked out how to deal with it. But
I've had that same exact thought, and I do feel, I've said this before, I feel really strange that we're still not keeping track of the data. I think it's probably going to come at some point back, but we were pretty stringent about keeping track of all that stuff. And I would get that question of, so I'm working on the CNC, running something. I'm also doing another job, post-processing.
Yeah.
How do I keep that time tracking? And I think my best answer was just you can basically keep that time. So that way we would basically modify it after the fact. But in terms of calculating your time for costing and stuff like that, it's honestly, how do you get to that final number? And the only thing I can think is you have to add it all up and divide it back down to what's the total amounts. But sometimes those numbers then become crazy. They're not reasonable hourly rates.
Yeah.
And I don't get that either. So we need somebody that has a business degree, I think.
Yeah, or someone who
What's your business manager say?
Multiple machines. Sarah and I are kind of in the same boat. We don't quite know how to deal with it. In the past, we've always just applied a similar hourly rate to a machine tool that we do to a human, because we don't know what rate to put on Cameron, the machine tool, versus the operator. So we've made it simple for ourselves, and we've just kind of basically applied the same rate to everything, and we just run it like that.
That's kind of what I did too. Yeah. Hopefully somebody has a better answer to this, because that is interesting. I mean, I don't want it to be super complicated though.
No.
I want the same thing you gave.
Yeah, I think, to be solved in a sense, but it's also something that's a curiosity of is there a better way to do this? I don't know.
The reason for me to do any of that data tracking in the first place, though, was to make sure that you accidentally not making money,
Yes, totally.
And so there was a point in time where my cost tracking was wildly wrong, like 3 times less than it should have been, like hourly rate. And I just never really caught it. We were making way more profit on each job than we were. So it's that exact problem, right? That I could see being a way bigger problem. And every year you're like, well, we're not really bringing home money. And
and that's the good thing about data, I guess. If you don't track it, you don't know. Or like if there's a question that you can't answer, it's probably worth answering it just to make sure that everything's okay, working out. Yeah, cool.
So why haven't you brought a Brucey yet?
Will and I were chatting about this last week when we were up there. The conundrum of growing a business to a point where, and I've mentioned this, like about my discomfort about investing in tools now without sort of some level of team approval. But we're discussing that and we're like, cool, I've built a business to a point very much just on intuition and making things up on the fly and doing what felt right at the time. And how do you balance that, almost 15 years of growth and intuition against a budget in a spreadsheet of which is kind of where we're at now. Like we're planning our 2023 financial year budget, which is a fairly new process for us. I think this year just gone, totally understanding the value in doing a proper budget, looking forward, but conflicted against the old me that would be just like, cool, I'm buying a Prusa now, or I'm buying a laser cutter yesterday. No answers, just an interesting conflict that I've got going on at the moment. But
it's a way bigger topic than I wanted to talk about this, but I don't know that right now kind of would take us off a lot of other things. But budget going into what seems like a sliding world economy was probably a pretty good idea versus buying machines, because it feels like it could be the right idea. And it's definitely something I have a lot to budget on at the moment. Like nothing's really that stable, but I would not be considering buying any new machines at the moment, trying to keep the ones we have busy.
Totally.
Fairly treacherous at the moment with the way that especially I feel the US economies are going right now.
Yeah. And I think that's a very wise, safe approach to be honest. Retain your cash.
Not that a Prusa is going to break most businesses' budget.
I know, but everything stacks up. Yeah. I think, just going tangenting here, but I think the most valuable things I got out of that trip to the tool show was flying, being in the air for an hour each way. I'd forgotten how amazing that Headspace is. Like, it's the most unaccountable time. The phone's off. You're strapped in a seat in the sky. The sketchbook comes out, and I got so much productive, critical design thinking done in those 2 hours of flight time than I have in the last 2 months. Like, it was just so good to just punch out some work. It was awesome.
I do miss that. It's always been my most productive sketchbook time as well.
I was just in a fever, just scratching away page after page of these disgusting, I wouldn't show anybody what I've done. It's such a mess, but incredibly productive.
You're like Rain Man with papers all over around you, and people next to you are like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
I'm building Kitta pots.
I'm designing a bed. Quiet.
But I'm threaded Dells.
Yeah. So I designed some machines on the way up, and I designed some products on the way back. It was good. It was a good time.
Oh boy.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I love that too. I haven't flown since at least 2019. Have you had any challenge with trying to plan your product costing or just design features basically based on having scarce materials? Has this been a thing? I know you've changed some of your stuff, but has it been continuously changing for you at all?
I'm going to say no. There's certain materials that we've run out of and we'll probably never get again. I think we machined the last sheet of 18 millimeter radiator plywood yesterday, which is a product we've been using for 10 plus years.
Just pine, right?
Yeah, it's just pine.
Basically, yeah.
And it's not that we can't get it at all. We could go out and find it again, but our supplier has stopped bringing in that particular product. And it was just a really good, moment for us to say, cool, all right, that's the last of the South American radiata we're going to get. Let's switch that to Australian local stock. So it's not that it's impossible for us to get it. It was just, a real good kick up the butt.
I'm assuming it's like a cost trade-off then?
Yeah, it's more expensive to get the local stuff. And there's challenges, but no, nothing that's really changing the product line. Like the Kitta parts update won't have any film face plywood in it because that's the birch that we still have access to, but I expect it to run out as well at some point or just get stupidly expensive. Like it's already gone up hugely.
I mean, what you're saying though, chosen to eliminate troublesome materials out of the equation though. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, trying to do the same. We set off with the Nack wall stuff being so reliant on Baltic birch that that's been a tough withdrawal to try to find alternatives. And the way that I designed those things, like these boxes, the way that it hangs on the wall, the kind of joinery, I don't know how to make alternatives that would be as strong or as reliable, and to change it without testing it in a significant way, especially over time. I wouldn't want to put that into people's hands and not know how it works. So I don't know. I overthink all these things, but I would rather that than something falling apart on somebody. Where I've kind of come to is just trying to go with basically the same thing you're doing. It's not a local product necessarily, but like the apple pie is, I understand they're going to keep doing everything they can to keep making it.
Cool.
And the core is birch, but the price will go up and they'll keep finding a way to get it. I don't know if that means like blood money or what, but hopefully not. I feel like they're a better company than that, trying to figure out how to get that here. That's the only thing I can think of, is to do that or to not make like the plywood boxes that we've been making for it, and just kind of finally biting the bullet of that's the way we have to go. There's no like hoping that Baltic birch comes back.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? When you've made a whole bunch of design decisions around the qualities of birch, and then to try and sub that out is challenging. We're running into that now because we're, I suppose at some level we're just making a flat out kind of ethical decision to go, cool, let's get local materials rather than imported materials. Well aware that that's going to introduce all sorts of production challenges, which we're already running into. Like the hoop pine is nowhere near as consistent in terms of its thickness across the sheet. So we're have to do much more sort of sanding, tolerance control, new challenges with like setting the material thickness to start. Like where do you pick the nominal material thickness out of a sheet, and then what do you sand to, and all sorts of tricks and challenges. Even just little things like all of our sort of manual router table tooling is set up for 12 and 18 mil stock, whereas all the hoop pine is sort of 12.7 and 19, or like subtle variations in thickness. So kind of retooling, resetting processes. But coming back to your point of like just structural details, like I'm doing some product development for a client at the moment. We machined some parts this week that Ben looked at them and he was like, oh, I don't feel comfortable about how that split batten engages with that rebate. Like I feel like that the hoop pine's just going to delaminate. I was like, oh yeah, no, that's a really good point. That is a risk. We need to test that. And thinking about it now, it's like there's definitely birch structure, like birch assumptions going on there of like, if that had been machined in birch, I don't think anyone would have questioned it. But because it's in this material that's subtly weaker, like nothing can compete with that like insane toughness of birch.
I was curious, you're using like the radiata pine is similar. The thing we always run into with clients in even pre-pandemic, but as it's gotten crazier price-wise, is the core consistency and like voids. Do you have a lot of that issue?
Yep.
So then do you fill it after you cut the parts, or like do you just kind of allow it to happen?
Depends on the project. I prefer not to fill anything unless it's affecting the usability. Like if it's a desktop or a tabletop, there's the void that's going to actually fill up with stuff, then absolutely I'll fill that. But if it's just purely aesthetic, like end grain void that you've machined through, I'd prefer not to fill those features because I feel like A, it's being more honest to the material, and B, I don't like the way fill looks end grain situation. But Yeah, certainly more voids in the hoop pine than we're used to in the birch.
Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that potentially switching for a structural scenario. I kind of figured that was going to be your answer, but I was just also curious more and more trying to understand some of those things of like, how do you deal with this? And it seems like you have over time, maybe a pandemic scenario started to move to those kind of other solutions that you can get locally or they're more reliable.
It's only really happened recently, to be honest. It's forced our hand, which has been positive, but challenging.
Nice.
Are you quoting much at the moment?
Got a ton of RFQs, of course, the first couple days of being homesick. So I think I got like 4 on Monday. Some of them easy no's, but yes, it's not. Yeah, getting some, and I battled this idea throughout. I'm not sticking super strictly to my default diary times, right? like you've described, but I have had this a couple times. Be it any scenario, it's R&D, it's quoting, it's sales, and I'm always one that's like when I'm in a flow of working that I don't ever want to leave that flow, like whatever that is.
Yeah.
For example, like even with quotes, it's like I'm in this headspace of crunching numbers. What do you do when you hit the end of your quoting block, but you have 2 quotes to do left?
I feel like, good question. I don't find flow very often. I feel like I'm interrupted so regularly that I get dragged away before I have a chance to think, oh, I'd like to keep doing that. And then it's 2 hours later, I'm like, what was I doing? Oh, that's right. Oh, well, I'll finish that tomorrow. But yeah, I don't know. I think the way I've structured my default diary, things end with some sort of logical time. So my quoting window stops when lunch starts. And everyone downs tools and comes into the lunchroom. And often I'll push through like halfway through lunch or even all the way through lunch to try and finish a quote to get it ready. So Sarah's got it to send after lunch. So like I stretch that time through lunch sometimes, but there's still kind of a rhythm to the day that makes sense to put down whatever I'm doing. Same with R&D. Like as people come into the building, I'm kind of finishing my R&D time. It'd be nice to continue that headspace, but I find it really just breaks my kind of focus and my rhythm as people enter the building. Greeting naturally breaks down the space I was in and I move into the next phase of the day. So I think finding sort of natural rhythm points in the day that kind of break it up for me is how I've done it.
I would like those. That sounds nice.
Yeah. If you're working at home by yourself.
And just with the small team we have now, it's like Ricky and I can kind of work independently for most of a day and kind of check in, and we both have gotten what we need to done or something like that. And I don't know. It's not important. I'm just trying to bash out for myself. Do I want to stick to this, or is the productivity more important? I think probably the schedule is probably smarter because then I'm getting done what I've intended to in all segments. But sometimes I don't, like I said before, I don't have anything to do. Like I don't have a production prep thing to do. We don't have a new job, and then I do stick through. But I think maybe the answer is when I have enough to do in each of these segments, then you go with those. You go with the thing, the next block, rather than sitting there. And it's just a tough challenge because what happens when people are expecting quotes and you can only get done 2 a day in that time period. Like what do you I guess you just stay late.
Yeah, look, if you've promised someone something, I stay late. But I find the 2 hours a day, I get through quotes so much more consistently and people are waiting, getting stuff much quicker than they used to be in the old model. In the old model, stuff would sit for weeks sometimes. And then I'd have, a huge rush of quoting, get a whole bunch of stuff out. And then as a result, would have a huge rush of work. And then I would stop quoting because we were too busy and would have this this wave structure. By being strict and only doing those 2 hours a day or trying to, it's really just flattened our production waves for the most part. It certainly helped in that respect. I think the other tool that I think can be useful, which, is probably a little different between you and I in terms of I'm trying to with my team, I'm trying to sort of reduce distraction where possible.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a structure in place of like for my key staff, we have a designated time every day where we check in. For Sarah, it's, you know, a 10:15 a.m. call, or Aaron, it's, you know, 8:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
And whether that's, you know, and we try and keep lists for each other. So instead of like badgering each other throughout the day on Slack or in person, we're just like, if it's not urgent, put it on the list, put it on Aaron's list, put it on John's list. And then at the pre-designated time when we both know we're going to chat, it's like, cool, what have you got? Oh, nothing today. Cool, let's carry on. Or like, yeah, I've got a few points, a few questions. And I find that a really effective way to like, not distract each other, but also have a known point which when we know we're going to check in and chat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. How do you communicate with Ricky informally as required?
Yeah, pretty informally.
Yeah.
I found it to be a lot more important to have more planning type things when we had 3 to 4 people. Just a lot more to that kind of distraction, for me anyway, was almost to the point of overwhelming with like, I could never get anything accomplished when it was just like, hey, how do I fix this problem?
Yeah.
So I totally could see that. And I would probably try to do the same. Another perk to like work from home when we had more people is just like, I'm distant.
Yeah, totally.
You know, like there's less, it's almost like an office with a really closed door. I think everybody's always been really respectful of trying to not be distracting with each other, but it just happens like you got the CNC running and there's a problem and you're the one that did the cam. Like, who are you going to go talk to?
Yeah.
I don't know. At some point, again, I'm sure. And my goal is to have somebody else that's doing the cam probably, as well as somebody else that's in between, you know, that's actually helping manage those things too. And that'll make a big difference.
Yeah. Nice.
When we get there.
Yeah. Did you listen to the Making It?
I did.
Episode?
I was a little, I guess, hesitant. I didn't know how sad I was going to be.
Yeah. Were you sick at the time already?
Yeah. What did I? Was it yesterday? I think I listened to it. So I just kind of like playing with slicing baby pants and listening to that. And yeah, that was good. And yeah, I don't know. You could tell like Jimmy talking through his friend and shopmate dying that he's very emotional. I can't imagine being able to talk about it so soon after, honestly. It could be tough to even communicate as much as he did. I have not heard that show before, so I don't know much about the other people. Bob Clagett, is he the I Like to Make Stuff guy?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really follow him much either, but know of him. I don't know. Yeah, it really resonated. I've always had a huge gratitude towards anybody that's worked for us, and almost everybody to a T has been incredibly dedicated. And I mean, we don't get into each other's personal lives much, but like when we're at work, it's respectful. And I would say I have even love for a lot of them that have worked for us. And I definitely related to the feelings he was having of losing somebody and just trying to always not take that for granted, I think is a good memento.
Yeah.
Definitely worth listening.
Any progress on the Nack?
Yes, a little bit. I knew that you were making progress on yours, so I felt the peer pressure to continue.
Good.
And I dug into the kits a little bit more in terms of playing with it, and especially like you said in Shopify. And I'm using this simple bundles plugin that I've been playing with, and it, as with everything, there's limitations on the bundle plugin with the variants. And really the thing that I think I'm striking up against now, which I do it in a more messy way, is I wanted to be able to have kits that could use either vertical or horizontal panels as being an option you could choose.
Yeah.
But as of yet, I can't figure out how to do that with this bundle plugin. So I'm sure I could escape out of that and do it a different way. But I think I may have to just have like, I have one called like Nack will apply kit. It might have to be horizontal, or some kits may only be certain orientations or something like that. That's one of my weird constraints I'm running into, but I have multiple kits and I'm putting stuff into them, which is a big progress. I worked on some graphics. I think I might have sent that to you last week too, where it's kind of taking all of the objects that go on the wall and then trying to make them into something that's a scale representation of how much space they take up. And I'm going to try and put those on each of the objects in hopes that helps people understand how much they can throw onto each wall themselves. And the other thing I had a thought of is you can do automatic kind of discounting. And my whole intent is, with a kit, it raises our cart, value, right? But it also is a benefit to them if they order more at the same time. So I thought, well, if you buy a kit and you want to add something else, I think I can throw in like an automatic discount of those other things that happens at the same time, as long as it's kind of the right formula. It's amazing how if you just try some of this stuff, like you've been saying, you get somewhere, you get some progress made. That feels nice.
Yeah, it's like making anything, I suppose, being informed by the tool. And if the tool is Shopify and the constraints, what can and can't do, I find, super effective.
Yeah.
That's great. Nice one. I really like your graphic style, by the way.
Of that one I sent you?
No, just in general.
In general, thanks.
All your graphic collateral on your website and bits and pieces you've sent me. It's nice.
Thanks.
Like it.
I'm probably a one-trick pony in terms of I don't have a lot of variability in it. It's kind of like my style is the one style I have.
Great. That's all it needs to be. I remember when we were studying industrial design at uni, and I remember a comment from one of I think it was a graphic design lecturer, that we were industrial. We'd done this sort of publication outcome, and I remember a graphic design lecturer talking about how he really liked the graphic outcomes from the industrial design cohort, because it's just very sort of pragmatic graphic design.
Yeah.
They weren't really aware of what was happening in the graphic design industry. There was less sort of I think he described it as less navel gazing, less sort of inward looking at industry trends and stuff, and just like, how do we communicate an idea simply and effectively? I've always remembered that when I'm trying to do graphic in my very simplistic way, often in Rona using hatch fill. And
I definitely know my limits with graphic design, and there was a lot of that. I think the opposite of what you're describing in architecture, where it was like people would not capitalize the first letters of things, and like there'd be underscores all over the place for no reason. And I'm sure I did some of that too, as you're kind of learning yourself.
Totally.
My brother was in a portion of design school at one point. He's a little bit younger than me, but he's always been a good place for me with, I'll ask him, what do you think about this? And I remember he told me some years ago, related to like a Nack product I was trying to name, whether it should be something branded or something just with a more straightforward name, basically like an IKEA, like crazy, like something that doesn't really make any sense. And he was like, I don't know. I don't really think you're that kind of person. I think you should just name it as straightforward as possible. And that's like been the easiest like path for me after that. It was like, I don't need to overcomplicate this. It's like, call it what it is. I'm not really like innovating names here.
Yeah, it's good advice.
All right. So I say your Kitta parts is
Kitta
rolling.
Yeah, it's made some good progress. I definitely feel the pressure of this. Like, as the week progresses, I'm like, shit, I really need to make some progress. So yeah, it's very effective. Made some solid progress yesterday. I'd already committed to dimensions, but sort of finally modeled up all the components, the new components in Fusion, gave them part numbers, SKUs, whatever. And then when Josh got in yesterday, I was like, cool, here's all the parts. And here's the starting configurations that I want. And he modeled them up so I could start rendering and thinking about getting them online. So it's a few more components than the existing Kitta part system. So I need to sort of think how we're communicating the different configurations, and we'll probably offer a few different kit sizes this time. So small, medium, large, rather than just one big kit. Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm always scared when I have been fearful of this situation of like new iteration and who's bought one last week or whatever, going, oh no, I missed out, or like, yeah, but I don't know, that's unavoidable. Like, if you're gonna transition any product, there's always going to be that point. You stop one and start another, and we're not really stopping the first one. It's not going to be a hard stop. We'll continue to service the new one's not backwards compatible, but yeah.
You could set like a well-known sunset date, you know?
Yeah. Great idea.
We'll do it for another 12 months. Get your orders in. And there'll still be people that are mad about it. You don't see it. Like, I expired our courses that people had a year access to do their CNC training, and I sent a bunch of warnings. Still had people months after the fact. I don't know. It's just going to happen. And I have the same kind of concerns and I try to limit those kind of problems because I don't want people mad. It wears on you, I think. And it's probably best if we just could find a way to distance ourselves. When you make those decisions, it's easier to make the best ones for the business when you don't have to directly answer the customer service messages.
Totally. Yep.
Which I do, all of them. Yep. So, I know that feeling. I'm sure that's driven way too many of my thoughts over the last year about the wall and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's good. It seems like you just like rocketed from, it seemed like a big problem we were talking about with all the dimensions. And then New Me seems to have solved a decent amount. And then all of a sudden you were making parameters. So good job.
It's just committing. And thanks for your YouTube fusion rendering video too, by the way. I've been meaning to watch that for ages. And I was like, because I've been thinking, I wonder what Justin knows about fusion rendering that I don't know. And then sitting down yesterday afternoon to start rendering some of these new configurations. So it was like, cool, I'll just put it on the other screen and just watch while I'm working. I think I'm across most of what you talked about, but then just seeing the way you were using those light emitting tubes off camera, I was like, I'd played with light emitters a little bit, but never sort of persisted past it looking just terrible. And so I just persisted for an extra 3 minutes. I was like, oh, actually, this is nice. Like I can make this work. So
I'll admit that Fusion doesn't make it super easy. Like,
no.
You got to basically turn off the lights to preview it to be able to turn it into a final render that looks okay. Don't love that, but you can make some decent stuff. I think, I'm glad it's somewhat helpful. It's got pretty low views, but the people that have watched it have commented nice things.
Yeah, cool.
Nice.
Got a entertaining finale here. Have you seen this Dall-E thing at all?
I tried to load it up before and it said there was too much traffic.
A lot of problems, It's gonna be a mess. There's this thing called Dall-E and it's like an AI app and you can type in what you want it to say. And so I started off with CNC baby pants and it creates a bunch of algorithmic combinations of those things. So this was pretty terrible. I'll probably post some of these videos or you can go watch the YouTube. This one's a little bit better. Baby pants with metal ducting for legs that are red. It's mostly just baby pants that look like red. This is my favorite by far. Baby pants with metal ducting for legs, especially the middle one, is fantastic.
Wow.
Two podcast guys who are friends. The faces are disturbing. I think we'll have to use this one.
Yeah,
it's like a bad expressionist. Baby riding a spindle with red pants. Kind of disturbing.
Super weird.
I think I have one more. An Australian guy named Jim with a robot, and the faces are just so strange. But you have to kind of fight your way through basically DDoS of their like server. So you got to try it. I did these kind of in the height of the COVID fever, so you wouldn't be surprised that they're a little strange. I found that entertaining.
Amazing. Cool. I'll have a go at that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good. Nice.
All right. What's your next step on, you've handed off Kitta parts? Is it on its way out?
No, I haven't handed it off, but I think next step is building it out in Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
Again, do what you're doing. Try and build out the variant logic. Hopefully these renders will help define the kit, like part quantities and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll try not to overthink it too much, but not make regrettable decisions either. Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I really want to get them out this month if I can, because
that's what Jim's beard sounds like.
We need a bit of a boost web traffic.
Yeah.
And also just aware of like, now that I've kind of announced what I'm doing on Instagram, I don't want people, if they were thinking about buying something this month, I don't want them to hold off waiting for this new product that then doesn't drop. So
yeah, for
created a bit of back pressure for myself.
How do you all do, I think you said before, do you do any type of pre-orders?
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I suppose that's my last update thought. That's funny. I always have one weird thing at the end of these is I went to order a bunch of materials for baby pants to start doing production runs, and the brushes are back ordered for 6 to 7 weeks.
Oh, no.
So I'm on my path of hopefully finding some alternatives, but I have enough for a few, but it's definitely, I don't imagine going to be as many as that want them. So
good problem to have in one sense.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. So I may do some form of like a I don't want it extensively, but some form of back order so we know how much to kind of stock for. And
Cool.
and because and the printing, like we all know, I've talked about, it's going to take some time to kind of keep up with that. Yeah, I don't know. It'll come as it comes, I think. And I've never not shipped a product to somebody as of yet in a dozen years. So not that anybody knows that.
Have you thought about doing a pre-sale for baby pants?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, was probably do some type of controlled back order pre-sale situation. Probably sell a few that we have stock for, and then make the messaging clear that this is going to take a few weeks because the supply chain is a nightmare. The same thing that I had been ordering to test all of a sudden was like 6 to 7 weeks out. And I was like, what? Wait, what? Now that I want it, it's not there?
Yeah.
I was a little frustrated with that.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
For sure.
Nice one. All right. I'll carry on.
Off we go.
I hope you're feeling better in no time.
I think this helped a little bit. I was afraid my voice would go out, but I'm feeling all right, actually.
You seem pretty good. Yeah.
I haven't had a lot of talking, so maybe it's just been built up. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Have a good week,
Justin.
man.
Yeah, you too. Yep. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
You can fall in a heap now. The cameras are off.